Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by Senator Tom Cotton, who will find a way to get a poke at the Browns in. But I want to point out that yesterday, lefties started to score the Trump administration for, quote, abandoning the Open Skies Initiative. If you pay attention, Senator Cotton questioned General Dunford 2 years about the Open Sky Initiative, and I want you to hear about it here first. Senator, get your Browns hit in and then tell us about the Open Skies Treaty and how Russia's abusing it.
Hugh, good to be on with you after that performance last night by the Browns. It would be uncharitable to say anything negative about them. I just wish them and all their fans well and happy recovery today. So Hugh, let's talk about the Open Skies Treaty, because this is an example in which the left's blinded rage at President Trump leads them into the most convoluted contortions of logic. The Open Skies Treaty says that many countries, but primarily the United States and Russia, can fly over each other's territory using normal commercial aircraft that have been retrofitted with cameras and other kinds of equipment to verify certain activities, whether it's military movements or nuclear arms control agreements, so on and so forth. For years, though, Russia has not allowed us to fly over, for example, Kaliningrad, its enclave by Poland, where they have built up large military platforms and troops, or over the territories of Georgia that they control. In the meantime, they've been upgrading their aircraft in the United States, and they've been coordinating the use of those aircraft with Russian, quote-unquote, diplomats on the ground, even to fly over places like the president's own golf clubs. So I have advocated for several years that if Russia is not going to comply with the Open Skies Treaty, we ought not be in the Open Skies Treaty.
And General Dunford agreed with you, didn't he?
And Chairman Joe Dunford, at an Armed Service Committee hearing last year under questioning from me, agreed that if Russia doesn't uphold its commitments under the Open Skies Treaty, then we should not be in the Open Skies Treaty. Because Hugh, here's the rub. We don't really need the Open Skies Treaty. We have a much better satellite constellation than Russia does. Everything that we get from the Open Skies Treaty, we can obtain from other means. Russia cannot do the same. So the treaty objectively favors Russia in two ways. One, they get more benefit from it because they don't have the same satellite constellation we do. And two, they're not even upholding their end of the bargain. So in fact, withdrawing from the Open Skies Treaty would be objectively in U.S. interest, and it would harm Russia's interest. Yet somehow the fever swamps on the left yet again spin this as some pro-Russian move by the president, when in fact, like withdrawal from the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, it is exactly the opposite.
Everything is obliged to fit in their narrative that the president likes strongmen, including this move in Syria. I don't think he likes Erdogan very much. I certainly don't. Now I'd like your opinion on this, because I have been defending this as the necessary realignment of our forces as we face another set of continuing resolutions that's going to bleed the Department of Defense of necessary resources and planning money, and the president's dealing with reality. NATO won't help. No one will take the ISIS prisoners. He's calling the bluff on the world. What do you think of this, Senator Cotton?
So, Hugh, I think there was some confusion yesterday in all quarters about exactly what was happening, and that partly to rest on the administration for not clarifying and explaining exactly what happened. I think by last night it became clearer to many people this is not a whole-scale withdrawal of the 1,000-plus troops we have in Syria. We only have a few dozen troops in the area that are under discussion in northern Syria. Erdogan has said for several weeks that he intends to make some kind of incursion to protect his security interests against what he views as a domestic terror organization in his own country. President Trump apparently made very clear to Erdogan on Sunday that the United States, contrary to Erdogan's request, was not going to support that operation, but also was not going to keep those few dozen troops in harm's way. He's also made very clear publicly there'll be severe consequences if the Turkish military incursion, should it come to pass, leads to wide-scale violence against our allies, the Syrian Democratic Forces. But the president has not said that he's going to withdraw all our troops from Syria. In particular, remember, from our standpoint, from our long-term security interests, from the interest of our partners like Israel, the troops we have in southern Syria, not northern Syria, but southern Syria, are more important because that is the land bridge between Iran and Lebanon. But as you say, Hugh, we've got to remember also that our gravest long-term threat is not inside of Syria. It's not even in the Middle East. It's China. We, of course, have interests that we have to defend in the Middle East. That's why we still have troops in Iraq. That's why we have military bases in the Persian Gulf. But our gravest long-term threat is from China, and we cannot take our eyes off of that threat. We have to keep our eyes on that threat.
So did any of your colleagues on the Democratic aisle who were beating up on Trump yesterday come over and say, you know what, if he'll keep those 50 troops there, I'll pass the Defense Appropriations Act because I'm serious about China? Did even one Democrat talk about the fact they're blocking spending?
Hardly so, Hugh. Hardly so. I mean, I suspect if Turkey had proceeded with this incursion and we still had a few dozen troops in that area, then the Democrats would be attacking the president for putting them in harm's way. I mean, they want to give it to him coming and going. But at root, this is a tough challenge we face, but it's a challenge the president's trying to manage in a way that balances our immediate interests and our long-term interests.
Senator Tom Cotton, it is always a pleasure. Thanks for the early word on the Open Skies Treaty. I think people are going to get a lot of disinformation about that. It began yesterday.